for irrigation agriculture. Archaeologists knew that early civilizations grew along the banks of major rivers. Here, it was the Tigris and Euphrates.
These rivers were fed by waters from the mountains to the north. Not far from here, ancient cities have been discovered. Around 2700 BC, they were populated by Sumerians. In this area, archaeologists have found proof that cereal agriculture was the basis of that civilization. Irrigated fields produced a dependable food supply for Sumerians. They dug ditches and brought river water to their dry lands, the first step toward large-scale farming. Farmers have been irrigating this area for nearly 5,000 years. Canal systems crisscross the whole land. The Sumerians turned the desert into a fertile delta. With an abundant food supply, the population grew, with Sumer divided into several city-states. This pattern was quite different from Egypt, which at the same time was developing into a unified country. We think about 200,000 people lived in the typical Sumerian city-state. The temple was the center of Sumerian city life. At Ur, archaeologists uncovered another temple called a ziggurat. Each city-state was organized around the worship of the deity, whose home was the temple.
Mainstream archaeology tells us that Sumer was the birthplace of civilization. The first cities, the first writing, irrigation canals, temples, and laws. But the Sumerians themselves never claimed credit for these breakthroughs. In their own tablets, they wrote that it was the Anunnaki who descended from the heavens and laid the foundations of culture. The word Anunnaki itself tells us who these beings were. It comes from two root words in the Sumerian tongue, Anu and Ki. Anu was the supreme god of the heavens, the father of the divine assembly, ruler of the sky. Ki was the earth, the realm of man. And so the Anunnaki were literally those who from heaven came to earth, beings who crossed the boundary between the divine and the mortal, who descended to shape the world of men. At the head of their pantheon was Anu, the distant sky father, seated in the highest heavens. Beneath him was his son Enlil, the storm god, who cleaved heaven and earth in two. Enlil became lord of the air and the atmosphere, and it was he who decided the fate of mankind. His brother was Enki, lord of the waters, master of wisdom and creation, who dwelt in the Abzu, the subterranean deep. Enki was the god who shaped mankind itself, and who later defied his brother to save humanity from the flood. Alongside them stood Ninhursag, the mother goddess, described as the nourisher of humanity and the womb of the earth. There was Inanna, or Ishtar, goddess of love, war, and fertility, both alluring and dangerous. There was Utu Shamash, the sun god, who brought justice and light, and handed the laws to kings. Together, these beings formed the great assembly of the Anunnaki. The tablets tell us that the Anunnaki chose who would rule, and that the laws and boundaries of civilization were decreed by them. When Hammurabi inscribed his famous code of laws, he credited Shamash, the sun god, as the divine source of justice. Mainstream historians explain the fall of Sumer through conquest, soil exhaustion, and shifting rivers. But in the tablets, floods, famines, and plagues were punishments sent by the gods. When humanity grew noisy and rebellious, Enlil sought to wipe them out. It was Enki who intervened, warning a chosen man to build an ark and survive the deluge. The biblical Noah is only the later echo of this much older Sumerian tale. In Egypt, too, we will find stories of gods who came from the stars, who ruled before the